Hello, good evening. My name is Catherine Kaplan, and I work with SEB Housing. And this is the information session for the 21 affordable rental units that are being made available at Juniper in Everett. And the purpose of this information session is to give you a little bit of background information on the available units, and I'll also cover the application eligibility and lottery processes, and then what to expect after the lottery is run. So if you're watching this after the fact and you have any questions, you can email us at info@sebhousing.com, or you can give us a call at the number on the screen here. And we can get back to you within about 24 hours. So just for some background information on who we are, SEB Housing, we are an off-site affordable housing consulting group. So we're not the on-site management team. We haven't seen the building, but we've been hired by the developer to market the affordable units, conduct this information session, and we're also the ones who are collecting and reviewing lottery applications to determine an applicant's eligibility and then to ultimately run the lottery. So in the initial phases, we are your main point of contact rather than the management office. But then further along in the process, you will be in touch with the management team. The management team is Greystar, and they will be working at Juniper, and they'll take over as the main point of contact when you're leasing an apartment. So there's a few steps in the process. The first is to apply for the lottery and be found to qualify for the affordable housing program based on what you self-report on your application. And during that process, we can answer any questions you have. And the second step in the process is if your position on the waiting list, which is created after the lottery based off of the lottery drawing results, if your position on the waiting list is high enough, you'll be put in contact with the leasing office over at Juniper to complete your lease eligibility screening, which is different from the screenings that you'll have with SEB Housing. Their screenings for leases might include might include credit checks, rental history checks, criminal background checks, that sort of thing. If you're found to be lease eligible by the leasing office, you will be invited to complete a program certification with SEB Housing. So that's the point in the process where you'd need to submit your pay stubs, tax returns, that sort of thing, because when you complete your lottery application, you actually don't need to submit any of that supporting documentation with your application. You're just self-reporting your income at that point. So if you haven't already, you should go to our website at sebhousing.com. If you select I want to rent, you're going to see that there's a page specific to Juniper because this is a rental opportunity. And there'll be a downloadable version of the application, there'll be an information packet, and there'll be a link to an online application. We encourage you to complete the application online. It's going to be the quickest way, and it's going to be the easiest way to ensure that we get your application right away. Once you've submitted that online application, you'll get a confirmation email automatically. If for any reason the online application isn't an option for you, you can download the lottery application. It's a PDF, or you can contact us and we can send you a paper application if you'd prefer to do it that way. When you're submitting your application, you can either complete it online or you can email it back to us. You can also mail it back to us. If you're in the Needham area, we have a drop box at our office that you can drop the application in. Whichever one of those works best for you. But again, we encourage you to complete it online if you can. And once you get that automatic email back, if you complete the online application, just know that we haven't actually reviewed your application yet. So that initial bounce back email sort of that you get is just letting you know that it was received. And about a week or two after that, you'll get a more personalized email from SEB Housing letting you know if there's anything missing, any information that we need from you, and if you're qualified for the lottery. The applications are due by June 23rd, so a little bit less than a month now, by 2 p.m. So the online application link is going to be removed at 2 p.m. So it won't work after then. So just make sure that if you're planning to apply, you do so before then. You don't need to be a resident of Everett to apply for the lottery. However, there are going to be a few affordable units that will have local preference for residents of Everett or those who work full-time or have children going to Everett Public Schools. And I'll talk more about that in just a few minutes, but it shouldn't dissuade anyone from applying if they don't live in Everett. So it's expected that the first leases will be available in late July, following all lottery and all of the required screenings. There are 21 total affordable units, and there's 5 studios. I'm gonna actually scroll over here. So there's 5 studios, 10 one-bedrooms, 5 two-bedrooms, and 1 three-bedroom apartment. The rents are listed on your screen here, as well as the average square footage. And the rents are set in accordance with an applicant's, they're not set in accordance with a applicant's income. So the amounts have been determined based off of a formula that this affordable housing program must adhere to. So the Federal Housing and Urban Development, HUD, publishes area median incomes each spring. And so the Boston area median incomes are the amounts used in the formula for Everett, since it's in the Boston area. These are the amounts, the set amounts for rent. They may increase once per year, typically after HUD releases the new area median incomes. There would always be advance written notice if your rent was going to increase. So if you sign a lease for August 1st of this year, your rent is going to be the same until at least August 1st of 2027. And you'd have several months, at least 1 month, I guess, advance written notice of that changing. So since we know that there are going to be more eligible and interested applicants than there are units, that's why we need to have this lottery process. So households with annual incomes up to 80% of the area median income will be qualified for this lottery, and households who make over that amount are not going to be eligible to apply for the affordable units and be able to rent the apartments at these affordable rent amounts. So just a little bit of a community description. So Juniper, this is a brand new property. The community has a fitness center, a resort-style outdoor pool. This is a rendering of the property. And there's outdoor courtyards, a pickleball court, golf simulator. Pets are permitted. There are some restrictions to that, as with any rental office, and there is a monthly fee for pets. So it's $50 for cats, $75 a month for dogs. There is a free parking space included with each unit. Utilities are not included, so tenants do need to pay for electric, heat, hot water, electricity, gas cooking, and water and sewer charges, which are sub-metered. There is a website for Juniper, so that's at the top of your screen here. If you want to check out, they have some more renderings and layouts and things that you can take a look at on their website. So in terms of who is eligible for this opportunity, so there's 4 eligibility requirements that are listed in the information packet. If you take a look at that, that's the document that most of the information I'm sharing with you tonight is coming from as well. So the first qualifying parameter for the affordable housing program is that, like I mentioned, households have to have a total household income that is at or below 80% of the area median income. And those amounts are on your screen right now. If you're a one-person household, your total household income, gross total household income, can't be above $96,000. These are the new 2026 Boston area median incomes. The second item to keep in mind for eligibility purposes is that household priority on the waiting list is going to be given based on household composition. So what that means is if you're a one-person household, or maybe you're a couple who shares a bedroom, you're generally going to be considered a type 1 household by this program. You can apply for a 2-bedroom unit, but the larger type 2 and type 3 households are going to be placed ahead of you on the 2-bedroom waiting list. Some examples of type 2 or 3 households are households with 3 or 4 people, and there's also some two-person households that would qualify. And the information packet has a lot more information about household types. When you fill out your lottery application, you're going to be indicating what your household type is, and we will confirm that based off of the people that are listed on your application. The third eligibility criteria is that households can't own a home when you are applying for a lease. So if you own a home now, it would need to be sold prior to leasing the unit at Juniper. And then the fourth eligibility criteria, it really doesn't come up very often, but households can't have financial interest in the development or be what the program considers a related party. So if you work for the developer, the management company, you wouldn't be eligible for this lottery opportunity. So just to explain a little bit more about how we count income and assets when we're thinking about the maximum income limit for this program. So since these are affordable units, they're being made available at rents that are lower than the market rate rents at Juniper. So again, you can only apply if your total household income falls below the amounts that were on your screen, and I'll go back to that in just a minute. But income for this program is counted as a projection of your income over the next 12 months, and that's for all household members. So that includes, bonuses, overtime, and it includes every household member, not just the head of household. The only exceptions to that are minors that are working. So if you have, a 16-year-old in your household who has a job, we're not going to count their earned wages towards your total household income. If you have a full-time, the only other exception is if you have a full-time student. So maybe you have a college student living with you, one of your children is 20. If they're working and earning a wage, we're only going to count the first $480 of their wages when we determine your income eligibility. It is gross income that we need to count. So that's the amount you make before taxes. And, although most of us are not taking home the amount that it shows on our pay stubs, that is the amount that the program requires that we use when determining income eligibility. And, we might need to ask for more information from some applicants than others. So the reason for that might be if you don't have a consistent salary, or maybe you work per diem, you work seasonally, we may need to ask for more pay stubs or different forms to be able to confirm and project what your income is over the next 12 months. So just keep that in mind. There might be some, information that we need from you that may not have been initially disclosed when we were asking for your verifications. But in general, any income that you have been making, so if you have 2 jobs on your tax returns this year, we're going to need to confirm that maybe you only have 1 employer now, or whatever you are disclosing on your lottery application. When you're filling out your lottery application, make sure that you're listing everything on it. So any wages coming into the household, Social Security, child support, alimony, unemployment, workman's compensation, any pension, any of that needs to be listed. There is no minimum income for the affordable housing program. However, most management teams, including the team at Juniper, wants to make sure that tenants can afford the rent. So regardless of whether or not you're going to rent a affordable unit or a market rate unit, they have set a minimum household income equivalent to 2.5 times the monthly rent. So that amount is on your screen here. So if you were a 1-person household looking to rent a studio, you would need to make above $62,500 a year, but not more than $96,000 a year to qualify for this lottery and for that studio unit, because that is 2.5 times the monthly rent. If you have a Section 8 voucher, you can disregard or MRBP voucher, a mobile housing voucher that you plan to use at Juniper. You can disregard the minimum income amounts because they won't apply to your household, because you do have a voucher that will be covering a portion of your rent. If you don't have a housing voucher, you are going to need to be between those 2 amounts that are listed on your screen. So the approximate minimum income and the maximum income limit. So the only exception to that minimum income limit is if you have a total household income that is just below, say, the income limits, if you have some liquid assets or a lot of money in the bank that you may be able to access to afford your rent, the leasing office at Juniper may still approve your application. So just keep that in mind. The minimum income floor, that's why it says approximate here, that is going to be enforced by the leasing office, whereas the maximum income limit is set in stone. And you know, even if you make $1 above $96,000, you would not be eligible for the lottery because those are program requirements rather than the approximate minimum income that's enforced by the leasing office. In terms of assets, there is no asset limit for affordable rental opportunities. So you might have a significant amount of assets. If you're retired, you're looking to downsize, that is fine. We are still going to need to collect information related to your assets, although there is no limit, because if there is income being generated by your assets, we would need to count that income towards your total household income. So you want to make sure you're listing everything on your lottery application in terms of assets, not just checking and savings accounts, but also, you know, the net cash value of any 401ks, other retirement accounts, or even your Venmo, PayPal accounts, stuff like that, if you have anything in there. What else? So again, if you're interested in applying for Juniper, we encourage you to get your application in to get the process started. And also want to mention too, if you are potentially interested in more than one unit size, so maybe you're interested in both a 1-bedroom and a 2-bedroom, you should indicate that on your application. There's no downside to doing that, but if you only indicate that you're interested in a 1-bedroom, and you decide later you might have also considered a 2-bedroom, you'll be at the bottom of that waiting list after the lottery drawing. So it's better to just upfront mark yourself down for whatever household size, whatever unit sizes that you might be interested in. So once you submit your lottery application to us, either online or as a paper application, we're going to review that application and contact you if any missing information appears to be there, or if there's anything that needs to be resubmitted. And you'll be given a chance to resubmit with that information. If you're found eligible for the lottery, you're going to be sent an email with your lottery application number, and that application number will be in the form of a series of numbers. So if you were the very first person to submit a completed application and be found eligible for this lottery, your lottery application number will be A.001. That's not a ranking of any sort. It's just meant to be an anonymous identifier when we actually do the lottery. So we're not calling first and last names during a lottery drawing. If you are eligible, that lottery application number will be sent to you by email. And that email is also going to confirm whether or not you reported being a resident of Everett or that a household member works full-time in Everett. If either of those are true, or if you have a full-time student in Everett, you'll be required to provide supporting documentation after the lottery to confirm that. So you want to be sure when you're completing your application, you are making sure that you're filling out that local preference question correctly. And like I mentioned, there are some units that have local preference. So if you are a local preference household, you're going to have a higher position on the eventual waiting list for those local preference lists as compared to other households of the same size as yours. And that's all kind of mapped out in the information packet as well. So you can see the order of priority of the waiting list. Again, the email that you get with your lottery application number, it's also going to confirm whether or not you applied for a disabled accessible or hearing accessible unit. And applicants who are in need of those units with special features will have priority for those units. And then finally, in that email that you receive with your lottery application number, you're going to see that there's a link to a documentation requirements guide. And that provides details on all the items you would need to submit after the final approval after, if you're one of the top households on the waiting list and you've been lease screened, what you will need to eventually submit to SEB Housing in terms of how many pay stubs and all of that. So it's just kind of meant as a guide for you to keep aside for if you do end up moving through the process and being one of the applicants who is invited to lease one of the units. If you're found to be ineligible for the lottery at any time during this screening, maybe you're over income, for example, you'll be informed, and we encourage you to contact us with any questions. Sometimes, especially with an online application, you might have had a typo in the income field. So if you don't think that your ineligibility is accurate, please let us know so we can take another look at that for you. So the lottery drawing will take place on July 8th at 6 p.m. It'll be much the same as this format. It'll be a Zoom call where I'm screen sharing, and you're not required to be present at the lottery, and the lottery results will be shared with everyone later on that evening. So you don't have to worry about missing it, because I do still need to sort the results after the drawing. So again, you don't have to be present because you will be notified of the waiting list results after the fact. The lottery results are going to be, or the lottery is going to be drawn using a website called random.org. So that allows for instantaneous results. The lottery numbers will be randomized on the screen by a computer, and the results of the drawing will be shared with everyone in real time. But then again, they need to be sorted by the priorities listed in the information packet onto the waiting list after the fact. So during the actual drawing, you won't know where you fall on the waiting list, but you will later on that evening when you're sent the waiting list that have been sorted. So in terms of lotteries, we might think there's 21 affordable units. You're going to pick 21 numbers, but that's not how these lotteries work. Everyone who has a lottery application number will be chosen in the lottery, and the waiting lists will be generated from those lottery results. So, if you're picked further down in the lottery, if you're number A.001 and you were chosen 100th in the lottery, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be 100th on the waiting list, because we do still need to sort the results onto the waiting list. And if you are further down the waiting list, it also doesn't mean that you won't be called forward to move on to the next step later on in the process. And that's because, normally to fill 21 units, there are quite a bit of households that need to be screened, because there are going to be people who are no longer interested in the opportunity or who don't qualify after the fact. So don't lose hope of being able to move forward in the process if you're not one of the households who's immediately invited forward after the waiting lists are created. So when you're reviewing the email that comes to you the night of the lottery, it's going to have the waiting list attached to it. You will find your lottery application number on the waiting list, more than one waiting list if you qualify for more than one unit size. And I should mention too that even if you don't have local preference, you're going to have a position on the local preference waiting list. It's just going to be further down the waiting list if we have a lot of local preference households. So once you look at your position on the waiting list, you'll have a better idea as to whether or not you'll be invited to move forward to the next step in the process, which again is to connect with the management team over at Juniper and complete your lease screening with them. Once you've done that, if you're found to be lease eligible, you reserve a unit at Juniper, and then you'll be referred back to SEB Housing for your program eligibility. And that is when you need to submit your income information to us and all of that. And that's one of the last steps in the process. So if you're lease approved and you are near the top of the waiting list, you're going to be able to reserve one of the affordable units. And then once you submitted all of your income information and asset information to SEB Housing, if you are found eligible for the program by SEB Housing, you're going to then be able to sign your lease. with Juniper. And we'll work with you. There's a lot of information that needs to come into SCB Housing in order to confirm your eligibility for the affordable housing program. Pay stubs, additional bank statements, might have questions for you after the initial submission, but we will work with you. Just make sure to meet the deadlines that are given and be in communication with us if there is a delay in getting information into us. So once you've been approved, you can sign your lease. You're done with lease screenings until your lease renewal date, which will be a year from your first lease date. But just keep in mind that the leasing office at Juniper will need to recertify your income starting a few months in advance. So if you sign a lease for August 1st, probably around this time next year, or maybe even in April or May, they'll be asking for updated information from you to confirm whether or not you still are eligible for the affordable housing program. And the good news is, even if your income has increased as of your recertification next year, your income can be above 80% of the area median income, because households remain eligible for the affordable housing apartment at the affordable rental price as long as your household income doesn't exceed 140% of the current area median income. So as an example, a household of 2 would qualify for this lottery with a income at or below $109,700. That same family next year, when they're recertifying, can make up to $153,580 at the time of their recertification and still be eligible to rent the apartment at the affordable price. So the program kind of builds in a little bit of wiggle room there. If you have a job change where you're making more money, or a raise, it doesn't mean that you need to leave the apartment necessarily. So that was really all the information I wanted to get through during the session tonight. So if you have questions and you're watching this after the fact, please contact us at the information here. We're happy to answer any questions you have leading up to your application, or just questions in general on the property. And again, the applications are due by June 23rd at 2 p.m. At 2 p.m., this link will no longer work. So make sure to get your application in within the next few weeks, and we look forward to receiving it. Have a good evening. Thanks for tuning in.